The stars had always been cold, knew this better than most. She had spent 12 years watching them from the surface of 7b, a rock floating at the edge of known space. The planet had no beauty. It had no warmth. It had only ore and the 12,000 humans who dug it from the ground. She stood at the window of her small office, watching the mining crews return from their shift. They walked slowly, their bodies bent from exhaustion. Men and women, old and young, all of them covered in the same dust, all of them far from home. Earth was just a story now. Most of the workers had been born here in the colony. They knew their home planet only from old photographs and the songs their grandparents sang. The Galactic Conclave had taken the first humans from Earth 50 years ago. They called it an opportunity. They called it progress. They called it a gift. It was none of these things. The door behind opened. She did not turn around. She already knew who it was. "They're here," said. His voice was quiet as it always was. He was a tall man with tired eyes and hands that never stopped working. He could fix anything. He could build anything, but he could not fix this. "How many ships?" asked. "One, a diplomatic vessel." Diplomatic. She let the word hang in the air. The Conclave only sent diplomats when they wanted something, or when they had already decided something. Either way, it was never good news. She turned and followed through the narrow corridors of the colony. The walls were metal, cold to the touch. The lights flickered every few seconds. Everything in this place was old and breaking. The Conclave did not waste resources on human colonies. They only took from them. The diplomatic vessel had landed in the main square. It was beautiful in the way that powerful things are beautiful. Smooth white metal, curved like a shell, without a single mark or scratch. It made the colony look even uglier by comparison. Ambassador stood at the bottom of the ship's ramp. He was tall, taller than any human, with a body like an insect and eyes that reflected no light. His species was one of the 12 elder races. They had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. To them, humans were children, less than children, tools. Walked toward him. She kept her back straight and her face empty. She had learned long ago that showing emotion to the Conclave was weakness. "Captain," said, his voice buzzed like many voices speaking at once. "I bring news from the Conclave." "I am listening." "The resources of 7b have been evaluated. The cost of continued extraction exceeds the value of remaining ore. The Conclave has voted to close this operation." Nodded slowly. She had expected this. The mines were running dry, everyone knew it. And the workers, will transport be arranged? His head tilted to one side. It was almost like amusement. "Transport is expensive, Captain. The Conclave has determined that relocation is not economically viable." The words took a moment to settle. Behind her, heard take a sharp breath. She did not move. She did not blink. "You are telling me," she said, "that 12,000 people will be left here to die." "I am telling you that the operation will be closed. What happens after is not the Conclave's concern." There it was, simple and clean. 12,000 lives, worth less than the fuel it would take to save them. This was the Conclave. This was the galaxy. This was the truth that humans had always known but never wanted to accept. "How long?" asked. "The fleet will arrive in 3 standard cycles to remove equipment and close the facility. You may use this time as you wish." Turned toward his ship, then paused. "I would suggest you use it to make peace with your situation. Fighting would be pointless. Your species has no weapons, no ships, and no allies. You are alone." He walked up the ramp. The ship rose silently and disappeared into the sky. Stood in the square for a long time after he left. Workers had gathered around her. Hundreds of them, then thousands. They had heard everything. The news spread through the colony like fire. Pushed through the crowd. She was young, barely 25, with a round face and bright eyes that refused to accept darkness. She was the colony's medic, the one who held hands and told lies about everything being okay. But she could not lie about this. "Captain," she said, "what do we do?" Looked at the faces around her. Miners, engineers, teachers, children, all of them looking at her, waiting for an answer, waiting for hope. She thought about her grandmother who had been taken from Earth on the first ship. She thought about the stories of humanity's past, the wars they had fought, the impossible things they had survived, the stubbornness that ran through their blood like iron. 3 cycles, said, her voice was calm. That is what they gave us. They expect us to cry, they expect us to beg, they expect us to lie down and wait for death like good little animals. She climbed onto a transport crate so everyone could see her. But we are not animals, we are human, and humans do not die quietly. She looked out at her people. We have 3 cycles, not to prepare for death, to prepare to make them remember us, every single one of them for the rest of their lives. The silence broke. Someone cheered, then another. Then 1,000 voices rose together, echoing off the metal walls, rising toward the cold stars above. Stepped beside her. You know this is impossible. Smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had nothing left to lose. Impossible is what humans do best. The colony changed overnight. From the outside, nothing looked different. Workers still went to the mines, machines still rumbled, the dust still covered everything. But underneath, something new was growing, something dangerous. Divided her people into groups. Each group had a task. Each task had a purpose. And every purpose pointed toward one goal, making the conclave pay for what they had done. Worked in the deepest tunnels, far from the surveillance cameras the conclave had placed throughout the colony. He had gathered every engineer, every mechanic, every person who knew how machines worked. Together, they took apart the mining equipment piece by piece. Plasma drills became weapons. The cutting beams that sliced through rock could slice through metal just as easily. Transport shuttles were stripped down and rebuilt. Their engines were pushed beyond safe limits. They would not last long, but they did not need to. They only needed to fly once. "This is insane," said one of the engineers, a young man named. He was old for this colony, nearly 60, with white hair and hands that shook slightly when he was tired. But his mind was sharp, sharper than anyone else's. "We are building weapons from garbage to fight a fleet of warships." "Yes," said, he did not stop working. "We will die." "Probably," looked up at him. "But we will die anyway. The question is whether we die on our knees or on our feet." Was quiet for a moment. Then he picked up a wrench and went back to work. In another part of the colony, sat in front of a wall of old computers. She was small, with quick eyes and quicker fingers. Before the colony, her parents had worked in communications on Earth. They had taught her everything they knew before they died in a mining accident. Now she used that knowledge for something they never imagined. She had found the conclave's broadcast network. It was supposed to be impossible to access. The technology was thousands of years more advanced than anything humans had, but had spent 3 years studying it, learning its patterns, finding its weaknesses. "I cannot break into their secure channels," she told, "but I can access their public broadcast system, the one they use for announcements across the galaxy." "Can you send a message?" Better smiled. "I can send a live feed. Whatever happens here, the entire galaxy will see it. Every planet, every species, everyone." Thought about this. The conclave ruled through fear and control. They kept species apart. They made sure no one knew what happened on distant worlds. If the galaxy saw what they were doing to humans, what they had always done to lesser species, things might change. Or they might not, but at least the truth would be known. "Do it," said. "When the time comes, show them everything." Train the fighters. He had been a soldier once back on Earth before the conclave came. He was older now, his body marked with scars from years of hard labor, but he still remembered how to fight. He still remembered how to teach others to fight. They trained in the abandoned sections of the mine. 200 volunteers armed with tools and makeshift weapons. They were not soldiers. They were miners and farmers and teachers. But they learned fast. Humans always learned fast when death was the alternative. The aliens are bigger than us, told them. They are stronger, they have better weapons, but they have never fought someone who was not afraid to die. They do not know what that looks like. We will show them. Did not fight, she had a different job. She walked through the colony with a small recording device talking to everyone she could find. She recorded their names, their faces, their stories. "Why does this matter?" asked a young boy, barely 10 years old. His parents had died in the mines last year. He worked now like all the children did. "Because you matter," said. "Because every person here matters. And when this is over, the galaxy will know who we were. They will not be able to pretend we never existed." The boy nodded slowly. He told her his name. He told her about his parents, about his dreams, about the toy ship he had made from scrap metal, recorded all of it. In her office, studied the maps had found. The Conclave fleet would come from the east, dropping into low orbit before landing. 15 warships, 5,000 soldiers, weapons that could level mountains. Against them had 12,000 humans with broken equipment and desperate hope. The numbers did not matter. Numbers never told the whole story. On the second night, gathered everyone in the main hall. It was the largest space in the colony, usually used for storage. Now it was filled with people, standing shoulder to shoulder, waiting. "They will come tomorrow," said. "They are coming early because they think we are scared. They want to watch us beg. They want to feel powerful." She paused, looking at the faces before her. Old and young, strong and weak, all of them human. They have forgotten something important. They have forgotten what we are. We are the species that tamed fire. We are the species that crossed oceans in wooden boats. We are the species that split the atom and walked on our moon. We did not become what we are by giving up. We became what we are by refusing to accept the impossible. Her voice grew stronger. "Tomorrow they will learn. Tomorrow the galaxy will learn. Humanity is not a species that dies quietly. Humanity is a species that makes its enemies remember, and they will remember us, every single one of them, forever." The room erupted in cheers. People held each other, crying and laughing at the same time. They knew they would probably die, but for the first time in 50 years, they felt like humans again. Found after the meeting, she was standing at the window again, looking at the stars. "The weapons are ready," he said. "The shuttles are ready, the people are ready." "And you?" asked. "Thought about it. I am ready to stop being a slave." Nodded. Outside in the darkness of space, the Conclave fleet was already approaching. Tomorrow would change everything. The fleet arrived with the sunrise. 15 warships descended through the clouds like metal gods, their shadows covering the colony in darkness. Each ship was larger than the entire human settlement. Each ship carried weapons that could turn rock into ash. Ambassador stood on the bridge of the command ship, watching the colony below. He expected to see humans running in panic. He expected to see them crowding at the gates, begging to be saved. Instead, he saw nothing. The streets were empty. The buildings were silent. The entire colony looked abandoned. "Where are they?" asked one of his officers. "Hiding in the mines," said. His voice buzzed with amusement. "Like animals crawling into holes. It does not matter. We will seal the entrances and let them starve. It is cleaner that way." He opened a communication channel that reached the entire colony. His voice echoed off the metal walls, reaching every corner, every tunnel, every hidden space. "Humans of 7B, this is Ambassador of the Galactic Conclave. Your time has ended. Surrender now and your deaths will be painless. Resist and you will suffer. You have 1 hour to emerge from your hiding places." He closed the channel and smiled. In 10,000 years, no lesser species had ever resisted the Conclave. Humans would be no different. He was wrong. Deep in the mines, listened to his message. Around her stood the last defenders of humanity. 200 fighters armed with makeshift weapons. Behind them, 10,000 civilians waited in the deepest tunnels, as far from the surface as possible. She turned to, "Is the broadcast ready?" Nodded, her fingers moved across her keyboard. "Live in 3, 2, 1, we are on." Across the galaxy, billions of beings stopped what they were doing. On every planet, on every station, on every ship, screens flickered to life. They showed a human woman standing in a dark tunnel, covered in dust, her eyes burning with something none of them had ever seen before. Spoke, her voice was calm and clear. "To the Galactic Conclave, to every species watching, my name is, I am the captain of the human colony on 7B. We have been told that we will die today. We have been told that our lives are not worth the cost of saving. We have been told that we are nothing." She paused. "You are wrong. We are humanity. We are the species that hunted our predators to extinction. We are the species that conquered our own planet and reached for the stars. We are the species that never, ever gives up." On the command ship, watched the broadcast with growing confusion. This was not how lesser species behaved. This was not surrender. This was something else. "You should have studied us," continued. "You should have learned our history. You should have understood what we are capable of when we have nothing left to lose. But you did not. And now you will learn." She looked directly at the camera. "We are not afraid to die. We are only afraid of being forgotten. And after today, no one will ever forget us." She gave a signal. Somewhere in the colony pressed a button. The world shook. The mines of 7B had been dug for 50 years. They reached deep into the planet's crust, touching the unstable core that bubbled beneath the surface. The Conclave had known this. They had not cared. The planet was disposable, just like the humans who worked it. But now those mines became weapons. Explosions ripped through the tunnels, not collapsing them inward but directing the force outward and upward. The ground beneath the Conclave fleet buckled and cracked. Geysers of molten rock shot into the sky. 3 warships, caught in the landing zone, were swallowed by the Earth before they could lift off. Chaos erupted. The remaining ships tried to rise, but the air was filled with ash and fire. Sensors failed. Communications scrambled. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Conclave fleet was blind. Then the shuttles came. They rose from hidden caves around the colony, 12 small transport ships that should never have been able to fly. They were held together with wire and hope. Their engines screamed with strain, but they flew. Piloted the first shuttle. He aimed directly at its command ship. Around him, 11 other pilots did the same, each targeting a different warship. "For everyone they took from us," whispered. "For everyone who died in their minds for Earth." His shuttle struck the command ship's bridge at full speed. The explosion lit up the sky. Was thrown across the room, his body broken, his mind filled with something he had never felt before, fear. Not the small fear of failure or embarrassment, true fear. The fear of something that could not be controlled. The fear of something that would not stop. On the ground led her fighters through the wreckage. The surviving Conclave soldiers had landed in escape pods, scattered across the burning landscape. They were better armed. They were better trained. But they were confused and afraid, and the humans were neither. The fighting was brutal and short. Humans fell, but so did aliens. For every human who died, they took 3 enemies with them. They fought with mining tools and stolen weapons. They fought with fists and teeth. They fought with the desperate strength of people who had accepted death and found freedom in it. When it was over, stood in the ruins of the command ship. 2 Conclave generals knelt before her, their guards dead around them. They had surrendered, actually surrendered, to humans. Behind her's camera recorded everything. The galaxy watched in silence. Looked down at the generals. Their eyes were wide with terror. They were shaking. These beings who had ruled the stars for 10,000 years were shaking before a small human woman covered in blood and ash. "You will live," said. "We are not like you. We do not kill those who surrender, but you will go back to your conclave, and you will tell them what happened here. You will tell them that humanity is not to be touched, ever again." She turned to face the camera. Her face was tired, but her eyes were bright. "This is what we are. This is what we have always been. Remember it." The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, billions of beings sat in stunned silence. The conclave had lost. To humans. To the species they had called primitive. To the species they had treated as animals. Everything had changed. The galaxy did not sleep that night. On 1,000 worlds, beings of every shape and size stared at their screens, watching the images play over and over again. The burning ships, the human woman standing in the wreckage, the conclave generals on their knees. It was impossible, it should have been impossible, and yet it had happened. On 7B, the fires still burned. Smoke rose into the sky, mixing with the clouds until the whole planet seemed covered in shadow. But in the center of the colony, there was light. Humans had gathered around the last working broadcast station, their faces lit by the glow of the screens. Stood before the camera once more. She had washed the blood from her face, but the exhaustion remained. Around her stood the survivors. 3,000 humans had died in the battle. 3,000 names that would never be spoken again. But 9,000 remained. 9,000 who had fought and won. "The battle is over," said. Her voice was hoarse but steady. "We have won, but winning is not enough. The galaxy needs to understand why we fought. They need to understand what the conclave has been doing to species like ours for 10,000 years." She stepped aside, walked forward carrying a small device. "My name is," she said, "I am a medic. For the past 3 days I have been recording the stories of my people. Their names, their faces, their lives. I want to share some of them with you now." She pressed a button. The screen changed. An old woman appeared. Her face was lined with age and hard work. "My name is," she said. "I was born on Earth. I was taken when I was 15 years old. They told me I would see new worlds. They did not tell me I would spend 60 years digging rocks in the dark." The screen changed again. A young man, barely 20. "My name is Minu. My parents died in the mines when I was 6. Cave-in. The conclave did not even send someone to tell me. I found out when they did not come home." Again. A child no more than 8 years old. "My name is Sara. I do not know what Earth looks like. I only know the mines. I dream about blue skis sometimes. I do not know what they really look like." Again and again. Hundreds of faces, hundreds of stories. Men and women and children, all of them sharing their pain, their memories, their small moments of hope in a place designed to crush hope. Across the galaxy, beings watched in silence. Many of them had never thought about the lesser species. They had been told that labor colonies were opportunities, that workers were well treated, that everything was fair. Now they saw the truth. And it was ugly. On the conclave, the ruling species gathered in their great halls. They had built an empire on the backs of lesser beings. They had convinced themselves that it was right, that it was natural, that the strong should rule the weak. Now they watched a child talk about dreaming of blue skis, and something shifted inside them. Not guilt, not yet, but something close. The broadcast continued. Return to the screen. Behind her, the captured generals were brought forward. They did not look like rulers anymore. They looked small, afraid. "These are generals of the conclave fleet," said. "By the laws of your own empire, their lives belong to us. We defeated them in battle. We have the right to execute them." The generals trembled. One of them, an older being with skin and 4 eyes, spoke. "Please, we were following orders. The decision was not ours, please." Looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned back to the camera. "We could kill them. Your conclave has killed millions of us over the past 50 years, worked to death in mines, left to die on dying planets, treated as less than animals. By your own standards, we have every right to revenge." She paused. "But we are not you." The words hung in the air. "We are human, and humans believe in something your empire has forgotten. We believe that every life has value, even the lives of our enemies, even the lives of those who would have killed us without a second thought." She gestured to her guards. They cut the bonds holding the generals. "You are free to go. Return to your conclave. Tell them what you saw here. Tell them that humans showed you mercy when you showed us none. And tell them this: if they come for us again, we will not be as kind." The generals stumbled away, hardly believing what had happened. They would carry this moment with them for the rest of their lives. The shame, the confusion, the terrible realization that they had been beaten by beings they considered insects. Stepped forward one last time. "I have one more thing to show," she said. "These are the names of everyone who died today. 3,000 humans who gave their lives so the rest of us could live. We will not forget them, and we ask the galaxy to remember them too." The screen filled with names, thousands of them scrolling slowly, each name accompanied by a small picture, old and young, men and women, children. 3,000 stories that would never be finished. Across the galaxy, something was changing. Lesser species who had suffered under the conclave for generations began to whisper, if the humans could fight back, maybe they could too. Maybe the conclave was not as powerful as they seemed. Maybe the universe could be different. On a small moon in a distant system, a group of enslaved workers watched the broadcast on a stolen screen. When it ended, one of them stood up. "We should fight too," she said. No one disagreed. The broadcast ended, turned off the camera. Around her, the survivors stood in silence. They had done what they set out to do. They had made the galaxy see them. They had made the conclave fear them. Now they had to survive whatever came next. Walked up beside her. "What now?" Looked at the sky. The smoke was beginning to clear. Somewhere behind the clouds, stars were starting to appear. "Now we wait," she said, "and we see what the galaxy decides to do." 6 months passed. The galaxy held its breath. The survivors of 7B rebuilt what they could. The mines were closed forever, their tunnels collapsed and flooded. Instead, the humans turned to the surface. They built greenhouses. They planted seeds brought from Earth generations ago, kept safe in small jars and forgotten boxes. For the first time in 50 years, something grew on the planet. Watch from her office window as children played in the new gardens. Real flowers bloomed in soil that had only known dust. It was a small thing, but small things mattered. Knocked on her door. He looked different now, less tired. The shadows under his eyes had faded. He smiled sometimes, which he had not done in years. "A ship is coming," he said. "Conclave markings." Nodded. She had been expecting this. The conclave could not let the humans go unpunished. Their entire empire was built on fear. If one species could resist and win, others would try. The rebellion had to be crushed. But when the ship landed, there were no soldiers. Only a single diplomat, a tall being with silver skin and 3 arms. It walked into the colony alone, carrying no weapons. Met it in the main square. Behind her stood 100 humans, all of them armed with the weapons they had built for the battle. They were ready to fight again. They would always be ready. The diplomat stopped 10 feet away. It bowed its head. "Captain," it said, "I bring a message from the Galactic Conclave." "Speak." "The Conclave has reconsidered its policies regarding your species." The diplomat's voice was strange, uncertain, as if it was saying words it did not understand. "All human labor colonies have been closed. Your people are being transported to planets of their choosing. The exploitation programs have been terminated." Did not move. Why? The diplomat was silent for a moment. Because we are afraid." The words hung in the air. Behind, the crowd stirred, afraid. The conclave was afraid of them. "There is something you do not know about our species," the diplomat continued. "We are connected. Our minds share emotions. When our leaders feel something strongly, we all feel it. The generals who survived the battle, they brought their fear back with them. It spread. It is still spreading." The diplomat looked at. Its eyes were wide, almost pleading. "Every time our leaders think about humanity, they feel terror, not the small fear of war or death, something deeper, something that touches the oldest parts of our minds. We do not understand it. We only know that we cannot make it stop." Thought about this. The conclave had ruled for 10,000 years because no one had ever truly challenged them. No one had ever made them feel powerless. But humans had. On one small planet with broken machines and desperate courage, humans had shown them what it felt like to be prey instead of predators. And they would never forget it. "The conclave offers humanity a seat on the council," the diplomat said. "Equal standing with the elder species, full rights, full protection." "No." The word was immediate. The diplomat blinked in confusion. "No. We do not want to rule," said. "We do not want seats on councils or power over other species. We want to be left alone. Go back to your conclave and tell them this. Humanity does not forget. We do not forgive easily, but we are willing to live in peace if peace is offered honestly." She stepped closer to the diplomat. "However, if your conclave ever threatens humanity again, if your ships ever come to one of our worlds with weapons pointed at our people, if you ever again treat us as less than what we are," she paused, "we will not show mercy a second time." The diplomat left. Its ship rose into the sky and disappeared among the stars, watched it go, then turned back to her people. "It is over," she said. "We won." The cheering lasted for hours. 30 years later, a young alien named sat in a library on the conclave. She was a historian, studying the great events of the past. She had chosen to focus on something called the incident. It was a gap in the records, a silence where there should have been information. She tried to interview the elders who had been alive during that time. They all refused to speak. Some of them became visibly distressed when she mentioned the name of the planet. One of them, an old general with scars across his face, began to shake uncontrollably when she asked about the humans. "Do not ask me about them," he whispered. "Please do not." Search the archives. She found only one image from that day. It showed a human woman standing in the wreckage of a burning ship. She was small, covered in dust and blood. Her eyes looked directly at the camera. There was a caption beneath the image, written in the human language. Had to use a translator to read it. It said, "We remember our dead, do you?" Stared at the image for a long time. She thought about the fear in the old general's eyes. She thought about the silence in the archives. She thought about the way her teachers had always changed the subject when humanity was mentioned. She closed the file. Some questions, she decided, were better left unasked. Some stories were better left untold, and some species were better left alone. On a distant planet in a garden that had once been rock's granddaughter played among the flowers. She did not know much about the battle. Her grandmother rarely spoke of it, but she knew one thing. She knew that the stars were no longer cold, because somewhere out there, in the vast darkness of space, the galaxy remembered what her people had done. They remembered the day humanity took a stand. And they were still afraid.